I understood and how correlated his speech to this essay. Now we're gonna move on to the second part of the essay, or like the second stage,
the still
life effect. So he starts with why does that happen, and he also talks about how his idea was so lame, and then we see this trend a lot of entrepreneurs, especially in our country. If you're watching from a developing country or a developed country, they're too in love with their ideas, and they don't think about revenue, or they don't think about doing due diligence in terms of research, or even when thinking in terms of an empathetic situation. You should stand yourself in the shoes of a customer. I mean, you might think art, and like he mentions this like in his first paragraph of this part, where art and tech mix together and they go well, but then when you move on from that point, you got to understand, not all people think like you in the same industry, right? What's your take on that?
Different people have different perspective, they have different ideas, and you cannot compare two people with the same thing, right?
Now, he also mentions, like a couple of paragraphs later, I was trying to find that, the idea of plunging. He says plunging head on is not bad, but then plunging head on with your first idea without like sitting a few days and thinking, that's what he did, and that's how he convinced his co-founder. And it was something that was wrong in his head. So this kind of relates back to the first part of his essay where we talked about earlier. There's like promising people with unpromising ideas. So he did eventually succeed in a company called Via Web. Of course he succeeded because he was one of the first.
Maybe this was a promising idea and the Arctics part was not.
Yeah, exactly.
Promising.
Yeah, exactly. That's what happened.
That's what happened.
And then there's other parts about like how he was going to name the thing WebGen, or from Via Web, it was going to name it Web Via or something like that. But then if you really look at this essay, it's like it's not only a slice of time, but it's timeless in itself too. Most of the things that he talks about is so much related
it's
to
still contextual right
now.
It's an old essay, 14-year-old essay,
but it's still contextual. In the same area, he talks about how even in his new company, from which he moved on from like the Arctics thing, is Via Web, and he just did that through a random name generator. So what he did was he took a 3-letter word and another 3-letter word, and he mismatched, and he got something called Web Via, and then from there he went, oh, why don't I switch it in Via Web? For 3 days he didn't think that was a good idea, but after that he really fell into love with that, and then he talks about that a little bit.
Yeah, it
might want
sounds
to check it out.
so good. Via Web sounds very good,
and it's a successful company. Somebody bought it. I think it talks about Yahoo buying it. I don't know. Somebody. Okay. So from there on, there's another title called Muck, M-U-C-K. So this other thing about this is where like something that can really help Nepali entrepreneurs and startups is he talks about why he jumped into it, because he thought joining art galleries with the internet was cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, don't do something that's just because it's cool. He reminisces his father's saying about whenever there's muck, there's grass. Whenever grass means money. So if you have to do the dirty work, you're gonna have to, go through so many other things. So sometimes you might not have to do something that is really ravishing, or that is something glamorous. You can do something that is really mundane and you can still make monies. You can't serve two masters. You can't want to be really cool and have a lot of money, and at the same time you can't want to be like a really cool, just a cool startup and like making money. Those for some
might go hand in hand,
but most of the companies don't want to. Who wants to go and like start a business where people have to just write things every day? They just have to transcribe. But if then you wanted to make like a open CV algorithm or something like that, and you sell it online, something like that. I don't know a lot about programming, but if you did that, it seems so cool. But then would people be able to adopt that in Nepal? That's the whole point. I was struggling with this, but then I was thinking Nepal in terms of Kathmandu only, but then the capital city and outside of Nepal are two different countries.
Yeah.
And then, you know, you have to adapt to what you were.
Way of living, mindset, it's completely different.
Yeah. And then, who wants to do like really mundane work? Would you rather go and just start working in an assembly line? You'd get paid really well, but then you don't want to go work in an assembly line, right? But then he also talks about the most important thing is making money doesn't happen by accident. You have to work towards it. If you know how to make money by accident, you have the superpower, please let me know. But then you have to work towards it. That's what he does. From there on, he goes to